Welcome to Helping Organisations Thrive. Today, I have the pleasure of having Carey Davis-Munro on the show today. Welcome, Carey.
Thank you, Julian. I'm really, really pleased to be here with you.
No, it's so good to have you on here. So, Carey, I just want to introduce who she is. Carey is a good friend of mine. I've known for about over 18 months. We met at a coaching, some training day. So she is a fellow coach. She is a co-presenter on our coaching podcast, Coaching Conversations. She's also a founder of Eat, Nourish, Flourish, a business that is dedicated to sustainable, healthy eating, well-being, and lifestyle coaching. So, Carey, we're talking about and discussing about helping organizations thrive at this time. And I'd be interested to know how you've been doing personally in the last few months.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, generally, I have been extremely well, but I am very good at ensuring that the priorities for me come first. So while obviously I run a business and that's very important to me, and I've had to keep that going and, you know, maybe pivot, look at different strategies and everything else. For me, I circle out red circle spaces in my diary so that I ensure that I am doing the things that are super important for my health and well-being, first of all. And that's been brilliant for me. It's been really accessible to have all my yoga teachers online, to be able to go and walk and run outdoors and to be able to do all those things. So personally, thank you for asking. I've actually been really well.
Great. And those priorities, I mean, are you saying that health and well-being is first and foremost in creating that sort of thriving sort of mindset and ability?
There's nothing that's more important. You know, working with organizations at the moment, there's so much going on, but if you haven't got well staff and your people aren't motivated and healthy in order to be able to come to work and to perform at their best, which few of us are at the moment, to be honest, because there's this fear factor and so much that outside of us are control, then this directly is linked to your bottom line and directly linked to your success as a business. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's the first thing when I'm looking at myself, when I'm looking at my children, my family, and when I'm working with businesses.
Okay, so just take us through I suppose a health and well-being week with Carey in terms of what does that look like, and just talk about why you're putting those things in place.
Yeah, well, for me, I work on a triangle, and I have done for many years. So my background is HR, so I understand at the moment, and the HR people that I'm speaking to, you know, I truly understand the stress that they've been under and the immense changes that they have been managing. So, and I don't talk from a point where I was high up in my, you know, my castle watching everybody doing it all right. I came from a point where my body crashed, so I had to make changes, Julian, and I had some very serious wake-up calls. So are
you okay to elaborate on those, or is that in terms of what those wake-up calls were?
Yeah, I mean, so I used to play very high-end sport and competitive netball when I was younger, and by the age of 20, I'd had my first knee operation. That didn't go so well. So by the age of 21, I'd had another one. And while I was pushing myself, and I've always pushed myself professionally, sports-wise, everything else, I hit a wall. I was wearing supports on all my wrists. I was wearing knee supports because I'd had 2 ops. I had my first of 3 cystectomies, nearly bled out on the table for the last 2. I was having chronic headaches. My digestive system all but gave up on me. All but gave up on me. And when I say that, sluggish is an understatement. And somebody that I had played international netball with said to me, she became a nutritionist and said, Carey, at the time, there was a place in the States called the Smokies where you could send off a report and you just cut a bit of your hair and it came back, and without knowing your name, it would give you a profile. Wow. This profile, without knowing me, highlighted the fact that somebody with my profile, high levels of aluminium, metals, and, you know, all sorts of other things going on in my body, would probably have continual headaches, cluster headaches, very poor digestive and problems with the digestive system. I would have painful joints and aches, which I did. I was in terrible pain, but still pushing myself harder, which we all do at this point in our life where we're working. I call it the invincible stage, where we all think we're invincible. And it went on to say, the end of the report said, if this person does not make some changes very soon in later life, we would expect to see something like dementia or Alzheimer's.
And those changes, are they like nutritional health type changes, I presume?
Well, from one day to the next, Julian, I threw out not only what I was eating, but what I cooked with. My cookware was all important as well. I was cooking with aluminium, non-stick pans and everything else, which I realized it's not only what you cook with, it's what goes into you from other areas. I threw out what was in my shower. I changed my diet. I did a course from the Institute of Nutrition. And as somebody who's always loved exercise and known exercise is important, I began to realize that the fulcrum, actually, of what we're built of, every cell that we are made of, is from food. So I became excited with the fact that I could actually make these changes and build those cells anew and regenerate, which I did. I couldn't put right everything that I had done wrong, if I'm honest with you, and I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue a couple of years later, stress-induced chronic fatigue. So I know for me, if I don't exercise very carefully these days, and I exercise every day, it's ring-fenced in my diary, if I don't take some time out to breathe, literally just breathe, I'm not even going to say meditate, and if I don't plan and eat well, then my body isn't supported the best way it can be. And I know that's the best way for everybody else.
Okay. And so is it for you, it's food over the exercise? Because obviously there's an element of people, I suppose, balance if I do, 50 minutes of exercise, I'll burn up X calories or whatever else, therefore I can eat this. And which is, that's okay, because obviously an element of weight loss and maintaining your weight, and that's really important. But do you think food is really important in terms of what you eat over the exercise piece? Definitely,
because we have this very personal relationship with food. Every mouthful you choose to eat becomes your body. So you decide what you're going to be made of. And funnily enough, I've got a very good friend who exercises and runs. And every time he runs, he says, oh, there you are. Now I can have my few beers. And I say to him, you cannot outrun your fork. Our body's not a bank account where you
That's what I do.
It's not like, I'm so bad news this morning, Julian, on a Monday. It's not like that. We don't have this deficit and then we can increase, and we've done a run, so therefore we can eat the bad things. The bad things are the bad things. And, sugars, the alcohols, which turn to sugars, fats, everything else, they're what they are. And you will become made of that. You might be able to maintain it for a short while. And this is why I talk to organizations at this point where people are working so hard, and we think that we're at that point. Usually when you're at your peak of your earning point, that's also when you're at the peak of pushing your body to extremes. And almost, I have to say, I generally work with people who've come to a point where their body has crashed in some way, or they need to make changes because they have got to a point. And I say to people, proactively manage that. I'm sure you have health insurance. I'm sure you have house insurance, and we have one place to live for the rest of our life, and it's our body.
No, totally. So it's not just about the calories, which is, often as you pointed out, when I used to do long runs and then come back and eat a pizza and feel I deserved it, which is okay, obviously, but it's that the micronutrients and what you eating in terms of on a daily basis is really important.
Well, it's not calories at all, Julian. I think, just one of my bugbears when people talk about calories, I never count calories, count nutrients. If you're eating the right food, you never need to count calories.
I like that. Count nutrients, not calories.
That's one of my mantras: count nutrients, not calories. And the third part of that triangle, which again is all to do with our gut health, which is so important. Our gut is the engine of our bodies. It's like the roots of a tree. So if you are going to think about what you're eating and you're going to get some exercise in, our bodies need to move in line with what we're able to do, then you have got the third part is the sleep. And through all of that is the mind management, where comes the time that you take out from your day to just stop. Focus on your breathing. Well, our breath is our life force. Without our breath, we're nothing. But sleep is so powerful. And I'd almost put sleep above the exercise. Wonderful book by Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, that I would recommend to absolutely everybody.
Okay, good. So we've been through some strange times in the last 5-6 months for everybody. And we know that well-being is really important in organizations. We know that looking after your people is our greatest assets, and there's a lot of for me, it feels like a lot of talk as opposed to a lot of reality of actually doing things. I'd just like to just get your view on that whole and what organizations are doing. Are they doing enough? What else they can do, I guess, in that context of why they should do some sort of well-being or whatever it may be to help their staff, especially at this time.
Well, firstly, I completely agree with you in terms of what you say. You don't think organizations are doing enough. They're not doing enough because, as I say, I think that there is not this realization yet that, your bottom line is absolutely a correlation with how well people are. We've looked at absenteeism for years, but we don't look at presenteeism. And I think presenteeism is also very important, although I'm not an advocate of this time of people having to check in and be visible. And I've known lots of, people who I've spoken to in the HR world under stress because of that enforced visibility at this time when they're trying to deal with homeschooling and everything else.
Yeah.
So I think that lots of organizations that I speak to say, thank you very much. We have a wellbeing policy. So they might have a policy. They might be offering a banana or a piece of fruit. They might be observing wellbeing days. They might be talking about mental health. But there is not a 360-degree approach to wellbeing. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about it, it was 360 degrees. I mean that joined up approach of all those aspects which make happy, healthy, motivated and well employees. Because, lots of organizations, and, don't forget, as I said, I came from a background and my thing was learning and development because I'm also a teacher. Mm. And in one business I was with, we tended to spend a huge budget every year on skills training, the same marketing training, the same sales training, the IT training. And you know what? We weren't hitting the mark. People tend to sort of, there's a negativity and there's always a real cynicism around training.
Yeah.
And that's when I became really interested in the idea of actually training for the individual. So not training the individual so that they can do that thing in your company. Because if they're not motivated to do it, all the skills in the world mean absolutely nothing. Mm. And then I became excited by the idea of really, putting in place well-being, a culture that really is at the root of it is each individual. That's in line with our culture, but it holds the individual accountable, one for their own direction, but also takes into account their direction in line with where the business is going. And we've seen lots of businesses, Julian. We did our series on, interviewing leaders. Mm. Interestingly enough, we spoke to the majority of businesses that were thriving. Since that point, I tend to have spoken to lots of businesses that are not thriving. Mm. And thriving means different things to different people. So when we're talking about what can businesses do at this time, I mean, to be honest, it's horses for courses because they are in extremely different circumstances. So in terms of thriving, some of the businesses I've spoken to recently, a priority has to be getting their cash flow ready, yes. Thinking about cash flow. And I can't say, obviously wellbeing for me is right up there, but my God, I know they have to think about their cash flow. Let's be realistic. Businesses that we spoke to that were doing well may have pivoted or they may have flexed in some way. Yeah. This is thriving, finding a different way of offering the same set of services or your USP or changing your USP. That's thriving. Another aspect that we saw of thriving was communication and the way that leaders were communicating, not only within the organization and building a culture of care and building a culture of well-being, right through the core, rather than just offering these piecemeal, we'll do a talk or we'll do this. It's thinking about, okay, how do we really get to the bottom of this and support people? And also communicating them with your shareholders, because let's be honest, it's not just managing inside, it's managing outside. It's internal and external. And we have an individual and we have a collective responsibility to people, I believe, at the moment, and a social responsibility. So I think that's thriving. But, it has to be where your business is at the moment. For those businesses who are able to, I recommend, you comprehensively take apart what you're doing in terms of well-being, training, motivating and communicating with your staff, because this is about building empowerment. And that's what we do as a coach, Julian. And one of the things that I was incensed about through all of this was watching, I think we had over 100 daily 5 o'clock government talks, didn't we, on the pandemic. in not one of those talks did they say to people, we know that you can build your own immunity. You can take control of this. And in a time when we all felt out of control, which was the biggest thing, and still in some respects out of control, to say to people, actually, you have a say in how immune you are, which we do. We do. It's not about waiting for a vaccine. It's not about waiting for a golden bullet, because we don't know when that's coming or what's going to be in it or who's going to take it. It's about day to day what we can do for ourselves to make sure we are the fittest. We are mentally resilient. We are feeling that we can get up and motivate ourselves to do our homeschooling, our taking the kids out, and our jobs.
Just on that, what sort of things could you do to really boost your immunity right now as an individual?
Gosh, we'd need about another 45 minutes to an hour, Julie, and I've got a masterclass on this at the moment. Which
I know you've got lots, and we could have 3 hours on here, but we don't want to go over 3 hours. But what the key things,
which is obviously my starting point, there's so much that you can do. It's a case of getting out of the house and out of the kitchen what's doing you harm, putting the good stuff in. It's about looking at an anti-inflammatory diet. We know people who tend to be obese at this time. Overweight or obese, or have inflammation of some sort within their body, are going to be more prone to getting diseases and more susceptible. So therefore, as a general point, we want to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. We want to move towards the plant-based scale. We know there's everything I read, everything I do, everything I learn points to evidence in that direction. We want to get the white empty calories out. We want to get the good stuff in. We want to eat coloured foods. We want to eat our garlic, our gingers. We want to eat our red foods full of phytochemicals, which literally go in and nurture the cells. We need to exercise every day, and we have got to get the right amount of sleep. And I know, there's been all sorts of evidence and reports on the fact that if we get less than 6 hours sleep at this time, then our bodies are more susceptible. Less than 6 hours sleep, I think, made us something like 50% more susceptible to getting illness.
Wow.
And it's a link. So for me at this time, in terms of resilience, there's only one thing that matters. There's only one priority, and it's putting yourself first and keeping control of what you can keep control of. And there's a lot. And within that, write down 3 things each day that went well, because we're coaches, Julian, and we are future focused, and we're all about what did you do, how did you move forward. So each day, to feel in control, write down 3 things each evening that kept you in control, that were good, that went well.
Brilliant. Okay, it's like celebrating success, which is a great thing to do. Absolutely. So just going back to the organizations, and obviously you mentioned a number of what I would call, and you would probably call, sort of very tactical things that people do for well-being, the bananas, the fruit, the all good stuff. And it's a way of promoting it in some ways. If you were to tell a HR person right now, or even a leader, and they were listening to this show right now, 2 or 3 key strategies, because we need to be strategic about this. And I appreciate some companies are in a state of sorting out aspects of their bottom line and everything else. But looking at the things that are more strategic, more sustainable, what 2 or 3 things would help create a culture of well-being that's more sustainable than just having banana every day type of thing?
I'd say that it has to start with your culture and your communication and what you're about as a business. And it's about embedding it throughout. It's not about piecemeal offerings and about those days and about that piece of fruit and about talking about mental well-being. Because as I was saying earlier, this isn't a joined up approach. It's about, the first thing that I do with businesses is go out and start the communication with the employees, which usually that hasn't been done. It's a case of, right, we're doing this, we're going to do this, we're going to approach it in this way. And when I've worked with HR people through this time, through every single stage, I've said to them, this is the way we're going to do it. You're going to go back to them. You're going to put all these things in front of them. We're going to ask what people are struggling with. So it's almost like an audit, the same way that when I worked in learning and development, we would do a skills audit.
Creating some sort of engagement with the people.
Absolutely. And letting them build it. in terms of positivity, the feedback that you get and the win that you get as a business, as a leadership team, as a HR, from putting it out to, this is what we're doing, this is what we've got, all these things for you. We're going to put this, and we're going to make this a comprehensive policy, which is to support you in the next few months. And we understand what you're going through. And we're not only going to look at mental health, because everybody looks at that, to be fair. And I have to say, most organisations I speak to look at mental health without looking at food and physical health, which is incredible to me, because it starts in the gut. Most of our serotonin and our happy chemicals are built in our gut. Yeah. You can't comprehensively have a mental health day without looking at that. So it's about putting it out there to employees, saying we can do all these things. We understand there's different issues with different people. We can offer some of you personal coaching. We can offer some of you group coaching. We can offer some of you masterclasses, and we can offer you wellbeing. We can put the days in place where we actually specifically look at some of the issues. We can put this on an intranet. It's a comprehensive approach. It's not a one size meets all,
It's been guided by the people, isn't it, in terms of their needs,
be guided by the people, because you'll get the support back tenfold, Julian. I know that just from some of the feedback forms that I've had, it'd be like, please, can we have more of this? Please, can we get more people in like this? And great knowledge that usually they'll put something, or they'll try to do something internally which doesn't hit the mark. And I'd say to all, don't bother. Either do it properly or don't do it at all.
It's almost getting people who are all step up and almost become more ambassadorial in the organization, in teams, who then start promoting it, and it starts becoming a culture, doesn't it? And that's the key thing, is making it a culture of well-being, a culture of that will go into resilience and thriving, and it starts to go on that sort of track.
Definitely. And then you'll become known as an organization that when, then it becomes part of your recruitment process. You become an employer of choice, because, and there are businesses out there that do it really, really well. And you can just do a Google on them and see what they're doing. And it's vastly different from most businesses at the moment that are just firefighting and trying to put the odd thing in, which is hit and miss. So go back to basics and look at comprehensively embedding this within a strategy of a culture that you want to build on your business. And this is the time to do that, because we are having to pivot and change and to decide what the business is going to be going forward. So definitely think this is the time, and then build it into your communication strategy. And people think that what I do is just well-being. Well, actually, it's not. It's all about communication as well. It's about being positive, and it's about nurturing and getting that feeling of nurturing back. And I mainly deal with HR people, but they are under pressure themselves, and they're a starting point. Nurture them and nurture the whole of the business.
And do you think, it always seems to fall at the feet of HR, which I sort of get, because they're all about people and human resources. But do you feel it should be something that's more strategic, more board level, and almost the whole well-being should be part of one of their goals each year is to be, create a well-being culture, or make sure that we're looking after our people, however they term it. Do you find organizations that are doing that more as actually putting it down in writing? It's SA goals, so therefore it'd be monitored, it'd be KPI'd, it'd be looked at, somebody will own it, and it'll start to become, you get what you focus on, effectively. If you don't focus on it, you won't get it.
Yeah, absolutely, Julian. I have to say that I think the role of HR is changing. There's lots of evidence to show that the role of HR is changing. The profile has changed during this time. And if, for me, I would say that if HR hasn't got a seat at your board table and isn't on that driving force, a part of changing culture, then why not? That's initially what I would say in answer to what you said there. But certainly it has to be part of something that people are looking at in the same way as, people are looking at diversity and inclusion. You should have well-being up there as well. And it's not, when people join an organization, we need to ask how well they are, what support do they need, and it should be an ongoing thing, part of our overall appraisal system. It's just, how do we support you, what do you need next, what can I give you, what do we need you as a business, where are you going personally, and where does that align with us, and how do we do that? But it's a comprehensive strategy. It's not, it's not piecemeal. It's a waste of money. I'd almost say there's no point doing it. People are
No.
cynical about training, and people are cynical about piecemeal offerings. So either do it, use the money, and see the difference this makes to your bottom line. Because you can give people, as I said, all the skills in the world, you can give them all the training, but if they're attitudinally not aligned, and often they're not attitudinally aligned because they don't feel the business cares about them, you're losing a trick as managers and as a board. You're losing a trick.
Well, because the impact of what you're saying, if you make it strategic and it becomes part of the culture, and not only you helping them health-wise, nutrition-wise, they feel valued, they feel looked after, they've cared for, and suddenly you get a whole engagement because you've taken them on a journey. So the paybacks are significant, and some things you just can't also measure, but it's all about the people. It goes back to the people bits, and you're using one aspect, but actually by doing that, you're looking at the whole person. And I think organizations, particularly this time, need to more and more think about their people, whether they're working from home, how they work in the office, making things COVID safe, everything else. It's really important, and I think it should be really top of the agenda. And I think it is. It's just, I don't think people are taking the actionable things. They're doing almost the tick box. Oh, we have the fruit when you come in, and we have wellbeing days, and we have so-and-so come in occasionally, talk about looking after your health, and we have a mental health nurse, and which are all good things. But if it's done, as you say, in a piecemeal way, it's just lost, and it feels a bit like it's just a tick box. And people feel that. And it's for me, it's almost making it part of the purpose, isn't it? And if it's a part of the purpose, it becomes part of who you are as an organization, part of your DNA, and people feel that then in the sense of, oh, this is a reality thing. They're really serious about this.
I think you're right. We can't hide the fact that we're in the middle of a global health pandemic, and if this isn't the time to embed a well-being and health strategy within your business. And, for me, again, it's all about empowerment. Everything that we do with coaches is about empowering. It's about empowering your staff. And there are ways to measure that. I mean, you can see year on year who's leaving. You can see week by week the absence rates. You can see teams that are thriving and doing well, and why they're thriving and doing well. So there are KPIs by which we can measure this. Some are more difficult to measure, but certainly, we know at this time that people need to have some control. They need to focus on what's important, and there are only a few priorities. And as I say, if health isn't the priority at this point, then I don't know when in the history of ever health would have been a priority. And making people feel empowered and giving them it's about educating. And I don't say that, I'm a teacher, so education for me is empowerment, but it is about educating, because lots of the talks that I've done through this time, people have said, wow, I didn't think I was going to learn much. And you don't know what you don't know. And that goes for me as well. When I log on, and we love our learning, don't we? We love our constant learning. It's about taking employees on a journey where you've joined the business, or you're with the business, and we're going here and we're going there, and we're constantly moving, and we're constantly getting to where we need to be next week, the week after, the week after. And if you're not taking employees on that journey with you, then any business strategy, 10-year strategy, it isn't going to work as well as it could.
No. Well, time is running out in a sense. Well, in some space it is. And I do thank you for your valuable insights. But I do know you're about to launch a book, and I'd just like you to sort of talk about that, plug it, because I think it's really important what you've done. And I've obviously seen that develop over the last few months. Certainly seeing all the food being made and taking photographs of, and not being able to come and eat it, which is a bit of a shame, really. So just tell us a bit more about the book and why you decided to write a book and what that book's about.
Yeah, I decided to write a book because to be honest, I love writing. And while I was writing it, I realized again that I love writing. And for me, getting well again was about my relationship with food. And I realized that food for me had been incidental to me playing all the sport, pushing myself professionally and everything else. And actually it needed to take center stage. So I went back and examined my relationship with food. And then as a coach, that's what I do with people. I put the context there about, where have you been with food, and where did this idea come from? And we build up all of these practices and habits around everything. Our habits are all built up around our experience. So for me, that's really very important. And I didn't just want to do a recipe book either. While I do, my passion is with food and delicious food, and I didn't just want to do a recipe book. So it's a coaching book, actually. So it takes people through the psychological reasons why we don't make changes. And then it guides people through the fundamental coaching strategy, where we grow and understand where we are. And then hopefully people will build a goal in each week. But it's a 12-step program. We know that in order to make sustainable change, which we want people to make sustainable changes, that it takes about 12 weeks. So it's a 12-week program with recipes and with delicious ways to nourish up along the way. So I hope by the end of reading it, people won't just dip in and out for a recipe, but they will have gone through a process. They'll have examined their relationship with food, and they will have come out the other side with something that is going to help them with longevity, quality of life, give them a stronger, healthier body with which to live the rest of their lives.
Brilliant. And what's it called, and when's it going to be available?
So my business is Eat, Nourish, Flourish, and the book is going to be Eat, Nourish, Flourish, 12 Steps to Healthier Family Eating. But actually, I say family, it's healthier eating, really. But there is a special chapter on there in teens, in actual fact, which can be a real a difficult time in a family's life for managing teenagers. And we hope it's going to be out in October. And I do have a number of courses that I'm offering to support the book at that time, and some live cook-ins with me as well. So that's going to be fun. And I'm also offering my masterclasses as well at the moment. Brilliant.
So it'll be in time for the Christmas present season.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think we've got our name down on one of those books when it comes out.
I'm even going to sign it for you, Julian.
Oh, brilliant. That's even better. It'd be worth double the amount I'll be paying for it. That'd be excellent. So Carey, how can people get in touch with you? It'd be good to let listeners know that.
Yeah, so many ways. I've also got a show on Wellbeing Radio, so you can get in touch with me there. But primarily, email me, Carey at eatnourishflourish.com. I'm on Instagram under Eat, Nourish, Flourish, so you can contact me there. Carey at wellbeingradio.co.uk. And you will find me on Facebook under Eat, Nourish, Flourish as well. And obviously on LinkedIn, I'm hugely active on LinkedIn. So please do find me there.
Well, thank you for coming today. I'm sure people will be in touch with you. You've got loads of knowledge, and we could have talked, I know, for a long time about your expertise in the whole area of food, coaching and nutrition. And I really do appreciate your time today. Thank you, Carey.
Thank you, Julian. It's been a real pleasure.